Welcome to Convergence Healing with Peter Bedard, where we empower you to heal your pain on every level of your being, body, mind, spirit. Our show is about sharing solutions for creating the life you want. We invite you to stand up and choose a life of health, happiness, and joy. And we're here to show you how. This is Convergence Healing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Convergence Healing, the podcast, right? This is Convergence Healing with Peter Bedard. That's me. Woo! Yay. I want one of those little machines that like clap for you that we could use. There you go. That's perfect. That way everybody gets some applause.
Absolutely.
So welcome back to Convergence Healing. I like to start the shows out with a little quote. And so I'm going to share this quote from my work with you from Convergence Healing, Healing Pain with Energetic Love, the book that I wrote a short time ago. And so this quote goes, here it is. I picked this quote because it reminded me of the beautiful woman that I have sitting next to me, of Emily. And so here we are. This is the true quest that is at the heart and soul of Convergence Healing. Each of us must learn to love ourselves, mind, body, and spirit, wholeheartedly and unconditionally, if we are truly going to become whole and authentic. So we must learn to love ourselves wholeheartedly and unconditionally if we're going to learn to truly love ourselves, be authentic, real, present, and I would even go far as to say alive. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to my friend, the beautiful Emily Van Horn. And I met Emily several years ago because I had a previous show where we actually filmed healers about their methods of healing, and we demonstrated those methods. And since then, Emily has gone on and become even better and more amazing at her work. And I'm super excited to have her here to share that with you. There's a type of therapy that she does that's called TRE?
Somatic trauma resolution
Somatic
therapy.
trauma resolution therapy, but there's also
TRE, which is tension and trauma release exercises.
Right. So what I like about them both are, one is you do with somebody, and another one is you can do with somebody, but it's really about teaching exercises to move through a lot of this trauma and tension that we carry around with us. Because once you trigger the trauma response, right, the exercise response, it helps process it through the body, the shaking.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And the key is self-regulation.
Right.
Learning.
So we're jumping a little ahead. So, but I want you to really take a moment, and a lot of the work that I do is about having people go within and releasing the things that are stopping you, those things that often act as barriers between us and someone else, those things that stop you from living in your highest potential and your greatness. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have Emily on, because she can show you how to let go of those things. And it's actually quite simple and pragmatic. It's an amazing process. So Emily, take it away. Tell us first a little bit about the somatic work that you do and what soma even means.
Well, actually, I was really inspired to say something with what you said.
Go for it.
Well, one of the things you mentioned about letting go, what happens when you're stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, you can't let go.
Right.
Because unless you release that through the nervous system, it's not a conscious choice. You have to address it, I think, at the level of the nervous system. And then the letting go is just organic.
Right. And what I like about what you said was you have to address it at the nervous system. Because so often when we have traumas, when we have pains, when we have things that we're holding on to, we could spend years talking about them. Right? We can spend years just talking to our friends about them or even going to a therapist about them. And interestingly enough, a lot of the new science that's coming out in exploring the brain and how the brain works and neuroplasticity and all that type of stuff says that the more you actually talk about your pain, the more that pain, well, it's a downward spiral, but it's like a groove in the brain where that neural pathway of pain gets stronger and stronger. So in my own personal practice, I've had clients who've been on a traditional therapist couch, not a postmodern therapist, because postmodern therapy is amazing, but a traditional therapy type of thing where you go in and you just talk to the person and you tell your story and then you leave and you come back and you tell your story. How do you feel? You come back. All that does is strengthen the pain experience. It becomes your go-to default behavior. Right?
So glad you addressed that. Because
Yeah.
It's an important concept.
And it gets stuck in the body.
That I deal with every day.
Right.
Yeah. And that was my picture of the groove on the record. Yeah.
The groove of the record.
Yeah.
I thought that was a downward
It's
spiral.
both. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never jump right into like, okay, talk about the worst thing that ever happened to you. We have to prepare first the foundation to have safety in the body. And to have somewhere to go back to, like what I call resourcing, before you even get into the story. Otherwise, I don't find it's helpful, and it can be re-traumatizing.
Right. So tell us a little bit about what somatic means. I know you said somatic is something to do with the body and the nervous
that's
system.
pretty much it.
So that's it.
Of the body.
Soma.
Soma. Yeah, it's just means of the body, and so.
So somatic therapy is addressing those actual physical experiences or emotional, mental, spiritual experiences, those traumas that get stuck within us.
Yes.
Right. And they come out and you work through the body to release them. Right. Most people are walking around expressing these traumas through shame, right? Through hiding, right? Through anger, right? Fight, flee, freeze, or hide, through any of their always running away, freezing, holding down. Right, that type of stuff. And so you're saying that you get in touch with those experiences? Now, that could be really scary for some people.
Right, and that's why it's so important to create that safety first in the body and in the nervous system.
How do you do that?
Well, one of the keys in this work is sensation. Sensation is the language of the nervous system. Okay. And by tracking physical sensation in the body, which most of us aren't used to doing, it's kind of new for people. They're used to talking about emotion or about feelings, but sensation is what's going to open up the neural pathways that lead to the hindbrain, the part of the brain where our fight, freeze responses live.
Right.
And so that's where you start, is through sensation. And
so teach me a little bit when you started talking about neurology, and so there's an idea that the emotions, right, and where they actually live in the brain,
right. Well, the way that I would approach it would be like, okay, so say you're having an emotion. Say you're feeling really pissed off and you just don't know what. I would start to have you notice, well, where do you feel that anger in your body? And what's the sensation? What the actual physical, is it tingling? Is it burning? Is it a cramp? Is it, and when you start to do that, the body really likes that acknowledgement, and it'll start to shift. It'll start to open something up. It'll start to release. If it doesn't, if it's so stuck, then we go to what I call a resource. And then we can go back and forth between what I call the trauma vortex and the resource vortex.
So what's a resource?
A resource is something you enjoy, something that makes you feel good, makes you smile.
It's a happy moment.
Yes. And as you're remembering or imagining that happy moment, what happens in your body?
Right. Okay.
And then you start to notice those sensations,
right,
and you'll get a completely different response.
So it's connecting a thought, a feeling, with a physical experience. Okay. Yeah. And whether it's a feeling that we don't want to have,
right,
or whether it's a feeling that we do want to have. The one we do want to have is the one we go back to. Am I understanding this right?
Yeah, and it's not so much what you were feeling back then. It's what do you notice in your body as you're remembering what happened.
Got it.
Or as you're imagining that swimming with the dolphins, or petting your cat, or
I like swimming with the dolphins. That was awesome. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and sometimes it's tough for people that I don't have any resources. Everything's.
Oh gosh, yeah. There was a time in my life where I couldn't remember what it felt like, looked like, sounded like to even be happy.
Right.
I had no resource for that.
I usually don't even use the word happy because people, you have to be a little creative sometimes to find like, what do you like about this color that you're wearing today?
That other people like it.
Okay, see
That people compliment it all the time and other people like it.
Right, even that's a resource. Okay, what are you noticing in your body?
That it makes me feel good, that I feel lighter when somebody says,
lighter.
wow, you look good. That's a nice
So
feeling.
even something just that simple can be a resource. Mm-hmm. And so we get a little menu going, so that way when you get to those stuck places, we have somewhere to come back to. So the nervous system gets that break.
Right. So we're going to take a short break in a minute, but when we come back,
Yes.
is there a way you can do a quick little 1 minute, 2 minute resource thing with us?
Sure.
Can you take
I
us
would
through
love
that
to.
languaging?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Great. So when we come back, we're going to be sitting down with the beautiful Emily Van Horn, and she's going to actually give you some techniques for moving through traumas. Shame, trauma. Yeah?
Well, let's just say we're going to build a resource.
To build a
Let's
resource.
Start there.
We're going to start there.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, we'll be right back. Thanks so much. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're interested, check out convergencehealingteas.com. You can try all of these yummy, delicious teas that are actually crafted in my home kitchen to help you feel better. We have a Sleep Well blend, a No More Anxiety blend, and all of those ingredients in there are designed to help you feel better through the traditional qualities that Mother Nature has to offer. Check it out. All right, welcome back to the Convergence Healing Podcast with me, Peter Bedard. I love saying that.
Awesome.
Isn't it awesome?
Yes.
I know. It's like, one thing I learned, and this just triggers me in an idea. One thing I learned is to celebrate myself because I never did that. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, applause. Right? I never would do that. I would hide my achievements. I wouldn't share them. I felt that it was, that whole thing about pride. You can't talk about who you are and what you do. You know what? If no one knows how good you are, then they can't come and celebrate you.
Right.
And even this with my clients. If I talk to people who I'd never met before, and they said, "Hey, I'm interested in coming to you as a therapist," and I said, "Oh, well, I'm okay." Right?
Well, not only that,
I wouldn't want to go to
You're
me.
modeling it for other people to have
Exactly.
permission to shine, because I think a lot
Absolutely.
of people don't have that permission.
Absolutely.
So-
So we're giving people who are
Peter
watching
can
this,
do it,
if
why-
I can do it. But seriously, we're giving people permission. I love your languaging. Permission to shine. So you have permission to shine, to talk about yourself, to be proud of who you are, to step in your glory. Right? And again, that comes back to this, because if you're suffering from traumas and you're walking around in those traumas, you are not going to be able to shine. You're going to, if anything, you're going to hide, right? And that's not okay. You are here to be glorious. You are not here to be, a speck of dust and with no significance. And you are a significant person, being, life on this planet. And that's why I do this show, really, because I want you to shine as bright as you possibly can, to live in your love and your power. And so Emily is going to actually show us a quick little way to actually get in touch with a resource to actually help you shine.
Yeah, so a resource, again, is something that you enjoy, that you remember. It could be a moment, it could be an activity, it could be something you feel proud of. So
Something that feels good.
yeah, so give me an example of something that
So when my partner got off the airplane and walked through into the terminal, that moment of seeing him, oh my gosh, I will remember that moment. Because we spent 1.5 years just traveling back and forth.
So before you go further, what are
yeah.
you noticing in your body?
I feel my shoulders rise, but not in a tension way. I feel them rise in like a giddiness. Like I get excited and I clench up a little bit in a way that's actually positive. It's like a tightness, like a hug. It's like I feel like I'm hugging myself a little bit, and there's an excitement, and my heart kind of flutters, and I feel a little flushed, and I don't know if I'm blushing, but I feel a little heat.
A little warmth in your cheeks?
I feel a little warmth in my face. And there's a laughter, there's a fun.
And so what I would have you do is continue to follow those sensations with just mild curiosity.
Okay.
For someone else, using their partner may be a mixed bag. So if you're not getting this kind of response, pick something else.
Right? Yeah,
Right?
I can
Because
understand
sometimes
that.
there's other things.
I can tap into a
attached
different
to it.
emotion.
Right. Just in case someone's trying
Right.
that particular, and it's like, oh, it's not working. Well, pick something else. Pick,
Right.
a time when you were on the beach in the Caribbean, or
Right. I can make that one up. That feels
right,
good.
yeah. Okay, and just to show the difference,
Seriously, I
what
could
do you
make
feel?
up-
What do you feel in sensation-wise as you're imagining yourself on a beach in the Caribbean?
Like I have nothing to do and my skin is warm and I'm in this beautiful sand and there is a breeze and there's a coconut tree swaying above me and the sky and the ocean are the same blue. They're just like merging into each other.
And are you feeling that in your whole
Oh,
entire
yeah.
body? Just moisture
my
upper
back
your
relaxes.
back.
My
Yeah.
hips. I actually feel my hips open up. Like I just,
There you go.
my breath deepens.
And
my pattern of my voice slows down.
The longer you continue to follow that, the more it's going to amplify, and the more it's going to continue to migrate, and the juice that we're looking for
Right.
starts to happen.
Right.
So
well, and juice is a good word because it's actually triggering. Our thoughts trigger things, and by going to that thought, there's more serotonin and endorphins and oxytocin.
Right.
They're positive instead of stress chemicals.
And just to clarify, it's a little more than just creative visualization, because you're anchoring that in by tracking the sensation. Sometimes people forget that step, and that's the most important.
And tracking means to become aware of how
Mild curiosity and follow it around.
Okay. So follow it through
your
the thought and the feeling through my body.
The sensation.
Sensation.
Follow like that when you talked about your muscles and your back and your hips, like that really starts to expand and open it up.
Sure. And I've been on warm beaches before, but I've never been to the Caribbean.
Exactly. It's the nervous system doesn't know the difference between something we imagine and something that's really happened, and that's why I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when in the therapeutic process, when we get to the renegotiation of the traumatic event, that's why it works, because you can imagine something in a new way, in a different way. I tell people, you're the editor of the movie. What part would you change?
Right.
And then as they imagine that and track, what happens in your body as you imagine that new possibility. Right. That's what anchors it in.
Yeah, and I love that because it's similarities between neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis and other types of therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. No cognitive behavioral therapy. No. Oh, okay.
Sorry. I'm going to
okay.
put my foot down there. No.
Right. So tell us how it's different.
Okay, well, the way that it's different is you're not trying to think your way out of your problems.
Got it. Okay.
It's not the frontal
cortex.
It's
an experiential.
Yeah, it's not like, I'm going to do a different behavior to try to change my life or my out.
Right.
That I
And in cognitive, you always have to trigger the pain. Because like if you have a fear of heights, you have to actually be in the fear of height. You have to develop a resistance to it.
For me, it's about just accessing a different part of the brain.
Right, I like
and,
that.
And so I haven't...
It's not just confronting.
Exactly. Because you don't want to be thinking about it in your rational mind.
Got it. You want to feel it.
You want to... you don't want to just really feel it. This is tricky. It's tricky, but it's... there's a moment when it's good to feel what's happening. You want to be able, and this is why it's helpful to have a practitioner, is to be able to get in this discharge zone.
Right.
And that, so we have just enough activation to allow for the charge to come up, but not so much activation that we're going to get stuck.
Okay, you guys can get that right. That makes sense.
I hope so. I mean, it's subtle, but it's very, very important. To the process.
Right.
And when I say discharge, that is something that you will physically feel. There may be tingling, there may be sweating or heat or chills or shaking or just that feeling of expansion or relaxation. Those are all signs that the nervous system is giving, like where you're at on the continuum. And if you're starting to spike or get overactivated or feel like, overwhelmed, that's when we go back to the resource.
So it's this constant sort of back and forth between the actual venting of the trauma and going back to a resource like the beautiful beach.
Yes, and we use the story in a very different way. The story is just to get the activation to come up, but not to really. It's not about the details of the story.
So you don't really. If I came to see you for a session, I wouldn't be talking about the thing that caused me harm. I wouldn't talk about the rape or the abuse or the.
You would, but it would be in a very. Modulated way, so that I might interrupt you, and it's not because I'm being rude or unconscious. It's because there's a moment to do some work.
Got it.
And we might tell the story out of order because that's also going to help break it up. It's just that the story is not the most important piece. It's how it's affecting your nervous system.
So the focus is different.
Yes,
it's not
thank you.
It's not on the story itself.
Right.
It's on the experience of the story.
Right, and how to shift that experience. And I don't want people to think, oh, they're not going to get to tell their story, because sometimes people actually need to tell their story because they've never talked about it before.
And most of the time, well, okay, that's in that situation, absolutely.
Right.
If you've never talked about it, to have another human being witness your truth.
For sure.
Wow, that's enormous. But you know what? I think most people are telling their story too much.
Well, it's the way that the story is being related to or contained. We have a different kind of container for the story so that we can close the file.
Right. Oh, I like that. I like that metaphor. And closing the file.
The way we'll know that that's happened is you can think about the event, and instead of being a trigger, it'll be a memory. And you have it'll be a little fuzzier and a little harder to access, just like a normal memory, versus something that still has charge to it.
Right. You know, I have that experience that I had to do a lot of somatic type of work around. And, you know, that was when my story, which doesn't have an effect on me anymore, is the story of how I died. You know, somebody slammed me into the back of a semi-truck, and my body did all that type of stuff, and I broke all these things and all those type of things. Like I can't even really go into a lot of the details of the story because it's just
not there.
It's just not there. You know, it's
That's
like
awesome.
It's a memory. It's something that happened. It's a fact in my life, but it's not. I don't have any emotional response to it. And people always want me to talk about the story of that. They always want to, oh my God, how that happened and how that worked and what was it like and where did you go? And I have to remember
you
that,
make a boundary. You're like,
yeah,
I'm not going there.
Well, no, but because I think the story is helpful to people. You know, I write about it in my book, and people want to know what life after death is. And I think it's a valuable story, and I think it's valuable in that my body did all these things and had all this pain, and that I'm not there anymore. But I think people need to understand the extent of the pain, because often if I just say, "Oh yeah, this was what happened," they're like, "What? Wait, huh? What?" You know, there's there's a skip or something. And so I've had to learn how to be able to tell the story and tell it in a way that people can understand, that has some detail to it, without engaging in it.
Yeah.
Like without interacting with the story, letting it just be a story. Mm-hmm. That makes sense?
Yes, absolutely.
And I had to do a lot of somatic type of work with it. I know one of the things I did for it was when I was able to actually remember a moment of the story that was it was missing. I was just randomly getting some body work done. I just randomly was getting a massage, and it was a real deep massage. And the person started working on my leg, and my leg shattered, and all of a sudden I had this memory pop into my head.
Yeah.
And the nice thing was, it was just a memory. It was like remembering a moment from my childhood that I had forgotten, I hadn't thought about in a long time. And there was no emotional charge to it. And I was like, I finally remembered that thing that I've been wanting to remember so much that I couldn't obviously remember, because there was probably until that time it was too overwhelming. There was too much of a physical angst to it. Yeah. And that's why I love your work. You know, I recommend you all the time.
Thank you.
Right. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned, and we're going to have some more conversation with the beautiful Emily Van Hout. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're interested, check out convergencehealingteas.com. you can try all of these yummy, delicious teas that are actually crafted in my home kitchen to help you feel better. We have a Sleep Well blend, a No More Anxiety blend, and all of those ingredients in there are designed to help you feel better through the traditional qualities that Mother Nature has to offer. Check it out. All right, welcome back. All right, so today's topic is trauma and releasing trauma in the physical experience of it from the body. And we have an expert with us. She's an expert actually in 2 modalities. Don't roll your eyes. You've been doing this for a long time.
I'm an expert. I really am.
Okay, so claim it. Remember what we said about me?
Yes.
The crowd's roaring.
If I'm an expert at anything, it's this. Yes.
There you go. Beautiful. And Emily works out on the west side of Los Angeles, yeah?
Yep.
You still out in Venice?
I am.
All right. Beautiful Venice Beach.
Yes.
So you rolled your eyes on that.
That's a different conversation.
It's a whole different conversation. Okay. All right. Well, Emily's with us to help us give some just, quick little ideas, thoughts, guidance, awareness around trauma and how trauma can be moved through the body. So, Emily, we got a question from our studio audience.
I love it.
Right? Isn't that fun? We have a studio audience. I think we're so sophisticated. There we go. We're more clapping. Yeah. So we got a question about. It's a little complicated. It's about how do you are people identifying a trauma after the fact that they thought they were okay with. Mm-hmm. And then something gets triggered where the story they've been telling themselves they find isn't real. So they manufactured a story to get through an experience. Or something was triggered, kind of like my experience of getting that body work, where something was triggered. In my case, I had done so much work that story got triggered and there was no real response to it. It was just like, oh, that's an awareness. Isn't that interesting? Right. But for somebody else that may not have done that much work, all of a sudden to have this memory or experience pop in that they had suppressed for so long. Right. What do you do with that?
Well, it'll just kind of come up organically as we're doing the work, and then we address it. And what I was saying before was that sometimes the question was, when, say, you've been helping people go through a traumatic situation, and maybe you've kind of not acknowledged your own trauma around it. Right. And there's 2 options. One is that maybe you didn't get traumatized because you were in action, so you had somewhere for that energy to go in the moment. And the other one is you might kind of get a little dissociated around it and think, oh, I'm okay. And so then when it does come up later, we'll just address it and work through it. And we can trust the body to show us what it wants to work with in what order, because sometimes we'll think our trauma is one thing. Mm-hmm. And then when we're doing the work, something else arises. It's like, no, you got to address this first. And sometimes that will just clear a whole bunch of things that are of similar resonance.
Right. I see that in holistic therapies all the time. This idea that we go in thinking we need to work on one particular issue, and the body or the spirit or even the brain says, no, you got to get through this one first. We think we're coming in for a fear of heights, or we think we're coming in for something, oh, I'm having issues with my husband or my wife or whatever it is, right? And then we find out that, oh, it's not about your husband and your wife. It's about some sort of trauma that you had that is triggering problems with your husband and your wife.
Exactly.
You see that all the time.
Yeah. And that's the great thing, is it's not really about my agenda, like, oh, well, this is your problem. It's what is the body? We follow the cues from the body, because your body knows, and sometimes it's surprising. And I've done work with people where we've got their list, and we're going through the list, and it's sometimes the last little thing on their list that they think, oh, well, do we even need to go there? And then we find out that was more potent than than the rape and the kidnapping. Like we never know until we're in it, and then we get to very elegantly and gracefully kind of disassemble it.
Right. And I like that. You work so gracefully with people. There's a process. I've actually worked, I had a little mini session with Emily, And there is a grace and an ease and a kindness to the process.
Well, we've suffered enough. Why? I don't think we need to suffer through the healing. And I try to make it as fun and as gentle.
Well, I bring that
possible.
up. And it should be. And bringing fun into healing, I always talk about that. Can we laugh? Can we play? Can we be goofy? And it doesn't mean we're not going through the process of healing. But so many people have this idea that healing should be this thing that they're so heavy about. Yeah, it's going to be so hard and that type of stuff. And it doesn't have to be.
No.
In fact, if you don't want to bring that energy in, then choose to bring in that grace that you provide with people. I think that's so beautiful. So this type of therapy is perfect for anybody who really has thought that they couldn't address something because it would be too much, it would be too hard, it would be too whatever, because there's a gentleness to the work that you do. And so I wanted to bring you on because people often are aware that they need to do healing. They need to do some form of therapy, but they are afraid.
Yeah. And just a quick note about, because I know your topic or your theme for today was pain. Yeah. And although there's many kinds of pain, this can actually work for physical pain as well.
Sure.
I mean, whether it's a frozen shoulder or...
Yeah, well, trauma to me is pain.
My knee's been hurting since that operation. Sometimes when you just can complete a response that didn't get completed in the moment, the pain goes away on its own.
Exactly. And, the brain doesn't know the difference between a pain that's physical, a pain that was an emotional, like a broken heart, or, a pain that's in your mind, that's an obsessive sort of thinking thing. Yeah. The brain only understands pain in one way. It's not like there's different parts of the brain that record different parts of kinds of pain right through there. So when I look at pain for me is we are healing pain when we are healing trauma, when we are healing fears, when we are healing a physical, shoulder, elbow, knee, that type of thing. And there's always a component to that. There's always a component of the football player. I give that example all the time that racked up his knee. His head is probably in more pain, right, than the actual knee itself.
All that banging.
Yeah, well, not just that. I don't mean just that. That the thinking part, the thinking of how am I going to survive this? What's going to happen? What's going to happen with the team? What's going to happen with my family? Can I afford this? I just bought a house. How am I going to pay the mortgage? All of that type of pain, right, is actually often more painful than the actual physical experience. And with that football player too, the pain of the thing that they have lived their life towards, that they have lived in a passion about,
to give up,
that they may have to walk away from their life passion, their joy, the playing that game. It's what they know. And often that emotional pain is far worse than that physical experience of the pain.
Sure.
So trauma to me and shame and those types of things, we don't look at it. We tend to categorize pain as being something primarily physical, and then we go, oh yeah, there's other kinds of pain. But honestly, the pain of the heart is and when when those traumas happen, right?
Yeah.
When that unloved experience that comes in from a lot of abuse and any kind of abuse. Yeah. That experience, when that gets stuck inside of us, right? That is far more. So I wanted to bring Emily in because she's an option for you. If you are suffering, either physically, emotionally, or spiritually, and this type of work that she offers us, can help you move through those experiences.
And resolve them.
And resolve them, actually. Take it to the end, and not just move through, but actually resolve. That's an important part of your process.
And when you're talking about issues of the heart or things of that nature, a lot of times most of the time it goes back to childhood. Mm-hmm. And so I find myself many times working with the inner child, and that's, again, that there's a lot of techniques out there that use that, but what's different about this is, again, we're bringing it back to the sensation and tracking, and that's what will allow it to be different than just inner child work on its own. Its own. But once that little kid gets what he or she needed, as an adult, they're no longer running the show, and you get to clear that too. So
that's beautiful. So it's very practical. And that I'm big on that. I don't want you guys sitting and talking about your pain for the next 10 years. I want you to get out there and enjoy your life and shine brightly and live to your highest potential. So if you're interested in the type of work Emily does, where can people find you?
Well, I have a website, which is www.somatictraumasolution.com.
And spell somatic for us real quick.
SOMATIC. Mm-hmm. And then there's also a Facebook page, which is Somatic Trauma Resolution Therapy.
Great.
And
people connect with you personally on those pages? On that page?
Yes. Or
Great.
do people give phone numbers?
We generally don't put on the podcast. But yeah, you're welcome to put out.
I don't mind phone calls. A lot of times I think people are shy. Nowadays, everyone who wants to talk, you can call me. I'm old, so I don't
for it. I'm old.
I'm from the generation of actually speaking voice to voice. So you're not bugging me. You can call me and ask questions. Or email me.
So how could people email you?
EMYVEE@yahoo.com.
MEV.
Yeah, that's my rap name.
MEV. Yo.
In the house. And then,
great.
Can I just mention about a couple upcoming workshops?
Sure, please.
Well, I do also teach something called TRE, which stands for Tension and Trauma Release Exercises. And that's a great, I love doing the two in combination, but you can come to one of my group classes at Yoga Nest in Venice. I teach there about once a month. I'll teach a class, or you can come for a one-on-one with that. And then I have a class on April 1st at Yoga Nest. And then I also am doing a workshop, a 2-day workshop in my studio. What I maybe didn't mention is that I'm also a painter, and I have a workshop coming up that I'm really excited about, where I'm combining some of the somatic techniques with painting as a modality to manifest and to create something new in an area in your life that maybe you've been stuck. And I'm so excited for that. And that's March 11th and 12th. So if anyone's interested in using their creativity and learning some somatic techniques, I would love to share that with you as well.
So to our studio audience, thank you for tuning in, whether you're on Roku or whether you're on Chromecast or whether you're listening to us on SoundCloud or any of the multiple platforms that we're on. If you would like to connect with us on any of those platforms, send us a message. You can find me at Convergence Healing on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And we're really looking forward to hearing your response, whether you would like to just say, hey, good job, or whether you would like to give us some feedback on how we could do things better. Or if you're looking for some help with some particular issue, I'm happy to look for a guest that might be able to benefit you. So send us a message, let us know how you're doing, and thank you for listening. Make it a great life. Ciao.